Hello everyone, it's me again, Waylene, back for today's second Kopi Chats. The news broke a few hours ago that President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have contracted COVID-19. I wish them all a speedy recovery and that they can go back to doing what they do best, doing the best for their country. As a result of this development, though, there's a lot of chatter online about President Trump, and I came across a thread about the debate that he had a couple of days ago with Joe Biden. I did a video earlier about the debate where I talked about persuasion technique. You can check it out in one of my earlier videos. But I didn't want to touch upon, I didn't want to fact check the debate, but somebody else did it for me, and so I want to share it with you here today. The good gentleman who did this is Drew Holden. He works for a magazine called Resurgent, and he bills himself keeper of receipts, maker of threads. And it is true, I've read many of his Twitter threads. They're all amazing, very well researched, and so I thought that I'll share with you in YouTube form instead of Twitter, because everybody uses the platforms that they prefer. They don't always overlap, so let me take you through it. All right, after last night's debate, Drew Holden wanted to fact check the fact checkers. There were a lot of bad claims, and I think a lot of people are not really aware of this, so let's just go through them real quick. So there was a comment, the claim: Joe Biden called Donald Trump xenophobic for his travel ban. I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. You don't believe we should have closed the country, according to Donald Trump. So some reporter, Noel Weiland, says this is misleading. Mr. Biden wrote on Twitter that banning all travel from Europe or any other part of the world will not stop the coronavirus. Top Biden campaign officials said in early April that Mr. Biden did support Trump administration's restriction on travel from China. That's not the only time that happened. So same thing, someone else, somewhere else, denied that Joe Biden called Trump xenophobic for the travel ban. And here we go, CNN tweeting that President Trump claims Joe Biden called him xenophobic, lacking context, they say. And then here is the tweet from Joe Biden calling Donald Trump xenophobic from March 18th, 2020. So pretty clear cut so far. Let's move on. Biden and Green New Deal. There's a claim. Trump alleges that Biden supports the Green New Deal. Washington Post calls that false. But the truth is, Joe Biden's own website endorses the plan, as many people have pointed out, and it pulls heavily from the Green New Deal. Let's take a look at that. Okay, google.com about the Green New Deal. It's $100 trillion. They want to rip down buildings, rebuild the building instead down the street. Yeah, that sounds really crazy, right? And the fact checkers say Biden has never supported the Green New Deal. The rest is also false, right? Here, journalist quotes: I don't support the Green New Deal. Biden's own website, joebiden.com/climate-plan. Joe Biden believes the Green New Deal is a crucial framework for meeting the climate challenges we face. So it's kind of stretching the truth there. Okay, let's see. And NBC News, lo and behold, actually sides with Donald Trump on this. Okay, I think this is kind of splitting hairs, because Joe Biden can very reasonably claim that I don't support the Green New Deal because it's crazy, it's too expensive. But I like some parts of it, and I take the parts that I like. But the way it comes off on TV, in a debate, is that Joe Biden is trying to avoid, being linked with the Green New Deal, when clearly he's very closely linked. And one could very reasonably say that, oh, Donald Trump's a little dishonest there, because maybe the Joe Biden plan isn't 100 trillion, right? Maybe it's something like entirely different, much cheaper, and very good for the environment. Could be, but it wouldn't. The debate wasn't the right format to get into that detail. So I'll call that like kind of meh, not a huge deal. But certainly, I think it seems that Joe Biden's running mate Kamala Harris is a big supporter of the Green New Deal. See, she says our oceans are warming, glaciers are melting, sea levels are rising. That's why I support the Green New Deal. So she does it. She's done it more than once, endorsing it very strongly. Okay, yeah. Let's take a look at the next claim. Trump and forest management. Trump said forest management is helping to drive wildfires in California and beyond. Or rather, bad forest management is driving wildfires. So Washington Post claims that is false. But the truth is, good forest management is important, right? A lack of forest management definitely worsens the fires. And I think you don't really need to look into this to realize the truth, because you do need good forest management. Because, and what I think over in Singapore, we don't really think about what is forest management, because we don't have forests the way that they do over there. But the idea is so simple. When trees grow old and they fall down and they shed leaves, all of that dry matter builds up, and it's just kindling. It just burns super easily, in a autumn or in a summer when it's hot and maybe it's dry during parts of the year. So you certainly need good forest management. That's just unquestionable. And there are things like clearing away the brush, clearing away the dry leaves, or actually doing controlled burns, which they do elsewhere in the world. They burn the material while there's very little of it, so that it doesn't build up into a big destructive amount. So that's pretty straightforward. Oh, this is a big one. Number 4, spying on the Trump campaign. So Trump claims that his campaign was spied on. CNN calls it false. But the truth is, yeah, there was an FBI agent, an FBI lawyer who pled guilty to forging documents to spy on the Trump campaign. So let's take a quick look at that. See, ex-FBI lawyer, and reported by not less than the Washington Post. No friend of Donald Trump's, but it did happen, and they reported it. A former FBI lawyer pled guilty to altering an email that one of his colleagues relied on as he sought the court's blessing to surveil former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. Kevin Kleinsmith, the lawyer, thought that he was inserting truthful information, and he conceded that he doctored the message. And apparently what he changed was the email read, Mr. XYZ was an informant for the CIA. And he changed it to was not an informant of the CIA, which is, well, totally a lie. Why would he do that? Don't know. No motive has been reported yet, but it did happen. So that enabled the FBI to surveil the Trump campaign legally, and CNN calls it false. So that's just too bad. The truth suffers. Okay, let me see. Drew Holden, he recognizes that this is a super important issue, and he gives it a little more airtime here. There's a full thread. I'll give the link in the description so you guys can check it out on your own if you like. Next claim is that Trump claims that Joe Biden refused to condemn the looting and the riots. CNN says false, absolute nonsense. But in reality, okay, according to Drew Holden, Biden failed to address the rioting for months, including at a Democratic National Convention, which already feels like a lifetime ago. So here we go. The National Review, very well-known news organization, Not as much as the main ones, but yes, very respected. He reports Joe Biden and Democrats were suspiciously silent at their convention about violence and disorder in America's cities, and Republicans hammered them for it. Biden finally came out belatedly with a prepared statement on Sunday. So it was somewhat late, and I do remember that happening. But look, history is being rewritten right now in front of us. CNN, right? Yeah. Trump claimed that Biden excused rioting and looting in the context of recent racial justice protests. This is false. Biden has currently noted that many protests have been peaceful. He has not argued that the violent protests are peaceful. He has repeatedly denounced violence, rioting, and looting, which is true. It's the timing of it that is being criticized here. Okay, there was a claim by Donald Trump that the economic recovery under the Obama administration was the slowest in American history. New York Times called it misleading. Drew Holden says this is just bizarre because the New York Times confirms that recovery was statistically the slowest, then tried to mess it up a bit. They had the slowest economic recovery since 1929, says Mr. Trump. Misleading. Mr. Trump is right that the growth rate of economic output as measured by gross domestic product was slower after the recession that spanned 07 to 09 than it had been following other contractions. That should be the end of it. That's it. Proven true. But the fact is misleading in isolation. Growth had been slowing for decades as population age and blah blah blah. That's kind of a cop-out. That's totally a cop-out because you didn't consider that for other issues. I mean, you could always on any issue at all talk about, oh well, you're not considering the macro factors. So that's pretty nonsensical. Left-wing violence. Donald Trump claimed that violent riots are driven by left-wing groups such as Antifa. New York Times calls that misleading. Well, this might be the most well-researched rebuttal ever. Okay, let me show you. So Drew Holden here links to an organization called the National Network Contagion Research Institute. Okay, neutral, independent, third-party research institute. And you might think, well, there are lots of these institutes, and I don't think they're all independent and non-partisan, even if they claim to be, right? So let's see who is working there, who's actually running the whole team. So check it out. Co-founder Joel Finkelstein. His work has appeared in the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, NPR, which are not friends of the Republicans or Donald Trump. Alex Goldenberg research appeared in NBC News, The Atlantic, Brookings Institute, NPR, Forbes, Vice News. Again, not friends of Donald Trump. Yeah, so I think, okay, the rest doesn't really say. So I find it very credible because the research is produced by opponents of Donald Trump. And let's see. So the report that Drew Holden linked to is this one. How militant anarcho-socialist networks use social media to instigate widespread violence against political opponents and law enforcement. It's a huge mouthful, but it's very, very important and rather terrifying. There's a huge amount of anarcho-socialist violence, and they have plenty of material for you to refer to. A lot of description, a lot of tracking of activity on social media, a lot of screen grabs from photos shared by the very people involved in these actions. The kind of conversations that they have online. ACAB here means all cops are bastards, is what I think it means. So there's a very, very long, very thorough looking report on this matter here. So I I say that it's pretty accurate that there are plenty of left-wing groups involved with violent riots. Okay, next one, even more egregious, were the checks that no one seemed interested in doing. There's one that's likely to trigger a lawsuit. Biden's allegation that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist. So, yeah, this is pretty damning. President of the United States refused to disavow white supremacists, and then he shared a photo of this guy, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who was in one of these riots, and he shot 3 people. But the truth was, he was attacked by three people, and so he shot them. And I have I opened up the news here so that you can take a look at it. So it was reported at thepostmillennial.com, which I know this website. I think they have pretty good reporting. They report on stuff that doesn't really get covered elsewhere because I think it's unfavorable to the Democrats. Yeah, so check this out. There's a video. Somebody compiled, spliced together all the video captured by smartphones to reveal the timeline of what happened. And there's a very extensive reporting here, very high quality, and also some information about the people who were shot by Kyle. Screenshots. Look, the first guy he shot is on the sex offender registry. All 3 of them had prior criminal records. This guy, Anthony Huber, was the second guy shot. Domestic abuse, lots of that. And then there's this guy, Gage Grosskreutz, armed with a firearm while intoxicated, so drunk with a gun. And here he is, he got shot in the bicep, and his statement, according to a friend, was his only regret was not killing Kyle Rittenhouse at the time. So it's pretty terrible. Okay, moving on. Trump at Wuhan. Biden alleged that Trump made no effort to gain information about conditions in Wuhan out of deference to Xi. So, oddly enough, even reporting from the New York Times and ABC News shows that President Trump did. Yeah. White House orders intel agencies to investigate China, WHO. So, easily debunked. And this is this one here, the both sides slander, is the foundational claim of Joe Biden's campaign, because in his debate he said himself that the whole reason why he got involved was because Donald Trump called racists fine people, called white supremacists very fine people in Charlottesville, and has been repeatedly pointed out this isn't true. So here we go. Dave Rubin is a famous reporter. He says, he quotes Donald Trump, very fine people. I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. There is reporting about it, and also video, the actual video, which I found for you right here on Politico.com. So let's take a quick look, okay?
And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Kill the person. Heather hired
Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest. Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as the owner. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group.
There you go. So in that same interview, after talking, saying that they're very fine people on both sides of, the question of whether to remove the statue, the historical statue, he went on to say, clarify that, well, I don't mean the neo-Nazis. They should be condemned totally. So pretty clear cut, and very weird that what Joe Biden considers is the foundational claim of his campaign is so easily found to be untrue, but he still goes ahead with it. And it's a really harmful lie, so I don't think that it should be allowed, really. Okay, let's move on though. There's a little bit more. We're almost done. Let's go to Supreme Court confirmations. During debate, Biden insisted that the Senate should wait to hear the nomination of the new candidate, Amy Coney Barrett. But over in 2016, he said exactly the opposite. Okay. But this is regular politics. I don't think this is even worth debunking. It's just so normal, mundane. Of course you would do what's beneficial to your side. And anyway, that's exactly the kind of thing you want your representatives to do. You want them to get you what you voted them in for, right? So that's totally fine. There was some, look at this. This one's still a little, scummy. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, was mentioned in the debate, as a drug addict and corrupt for taking money from overseas. And it is true that he did take money, right? It's reported here, Newsweek, New York Post, neither of which are friends of Donald Trump. So this is just simply true. However, and here's the thing, I don't even know if it's illegal, because you could get money, you could be paid, and there's nothing illegal about that. So if I am on the board of a foreign company and they pay me, even though I'm not really experienced, well, it's nobody's fault but their own. So that's not really a big deal. It is kind of, as they say, swampy. It is kind of corrupt looking. It smells bad. Yeah, looks really terrible. But not necessarily illegal. And that's just too bad. It should be. There was also a debate about the efficacy of masks. Biden alleges that Trump didn't do anything, didn't do enough to support the mask wearing. Apparently back then there was some debate, and I remember even in Singapore we weren't sure whether people, everybody should wear a mask. Should it be something people do all the time? Would there be enough supply? All that stuff. It was all up in the air. So yes, it's entirely true that this was not a clear-cut thing early on. Okay, Drew Holden also provides the link to the actual thread he did earlier on. And number 7 here, it's not even that interesting for us overseas. There was a claim that the Russian government was paying a bounty for, was it Iraqi or Afghan fighters who bring proof of, having killed American soldiers to the Russians. But it eventually turned out to be fake. Existence of Antifa, already the report that I showed earlier kind of lays out plenty of evidence that there's an organization and people participate in it. See this organization, very well respected, called the Anti-Defamation League. They have a full page about the background with the tactics, you know, their scope, what they want to achieve, all there. So yeah, I'll put this in the description as well. And that's about it, folks. Drew Holden concludes a little bit and wraps it up. So, hope I've shown you some stuff that you haven't seen before. I hope you find it educational and interesting. Hope it gives you some material that you can use in your conversations with your friends. And I'll put all the material, links to all the material that I used into the description. Please check it out there if you'd like to read up a little bit more. Hope that was interesting for you, as it was for me. And as usual, it's always a great pleasure to be talking here. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.